if you get nothing else from me, draw your dreams. If there were no obstacles, what is it that I really want? What if there were no obstacles? What is it that I really want? It doesn't have to be realistic at this point, and it's better if it's not. When you let go of reality for just enough time to get in touch with what matters most to you, then you can access some deeper parts of your brain. Welcome to Hyperfocus and High Performance, the podcast for brilliant but exhausted ADHD visionaries who want to build their dreams without burning out and without losing their fun personalities. I'm your host, Christine Howe, counselor turned coach, founder of Think Time, and creator of the first whole brain neuroplanner. For more than a decade, I've helped leaders, entrepreneurs, and creative thinkers harness the strengths of their ADHD mind so they can experience more clarity, creativity, and meaningful productivity and presence. Because let's be honest, you have ideas, big ideas, important ideas, lots of ideas. But sometimes it feels like your brain has 47 browser tabs open at once and you can't find the right tab. You know you're capable of more, yet traditional productivity systems often leave you feeling overwhelmed, scattered, exhausted, or wondering why everyone else seems to be able to follow a plan that simply doesn't work for you. And if that sounds familiar, you're not alone and you're in the right place. Together, we'll explore how to turn some of your greatest struggles into some of your greatest strengths. We'll talk about neuroscience, leadership, creativity, productivity, healing, hope, purpose, and my favorite part, the stories behind the success that people rarely talk about. We'll learn how to work with your brain instead of constantly fighting against it. And we'll do it using my neuroplanning process. Love your design, then dream, decide, do, review. Because when you learn to plan in the native, creative language of your brain, you can increase your opportunity to experience more clarity, calm, confidence, creativity, with meaningful progress, with peace, not pressure. Okay, so about 11 years ago, I lived in Dallas in a duplex. We rented this duplex near White Rock Lake. It was wonderful. We could go and take a jogging stroller around the lake, and it was beautiful. But I had 3 kids 4 and under. And like a lot of women who find out that they have ADHD later in life, it's about the season of life where it all kind of crashes in. And so that's the point of life I was in. I would regularly clean and turn around and it looked like nothing had happened, right? But this particular Saturday morning in spring of 2015, I had a dream and I wanted to find out if this could happen. I wanted to create an organizational system in my garage with the goal of if I wanted to lay my hands on a 9-month skirt, I could just walk straight to a bin, open it up, reach my hand in and find a 9-month skirt. And for someone who is not in my target audience, they're going to think, well, that's kind of a low dream, right? But if you're in the right place, you understand what it could look like in a garage with 3 kids 4 and under and undiagnosed symptoms of ADHD running the day. So there were things everywhere, toys, bags of clothes. I mean, people just gave me clothes. And this is the season of life where people are like, you have kids? I have junk. 1 second, I'll be right back with my junk. And then they would just dump stuff on me. And I'm like, I can't handle all this stuff. So this is the season of life I was in when this discovery happened. Okay. So a few months beforehand, I was getting sort of creative with my goal achievement strategies. And I hearkened back to a class I'd taken in seminary that taught me that when you engage the creative parts of your mind, you engage the emotions of your soul, basically. And so I, in like January, December-ish, had applied that toward big goals like New Year's resolutions. But this particular day, I thought, well, what if I could use the same strategies for a small goal, like organizing clothes in a garage. I knew I wasn't lazy. I knew I was a high achiever. I had all sorts of degrees and licenses and experiences and fellowships and internships to show that I could accomplish things. But here I was, nonetheless, on a Saturday with a messy garage and a goal to organize it. So, what I did differently this one day that I'd never done before, and I have done a lot since, is I paused before I started this big project. I sat down, and instead of just diving in, I drew what at that point for me was a dream, because I had never really been able to accomplish a multi-step project like that without really getting pulled off. And I knew that about myself. So I paused, I sat down, and I drew the end goal that I wanted to see. So I drew really strong shelves and boxes, clear boxes with labels on them. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2T, 3T, 4T, in order. And it seems simple again, but every other time that I'd started to do a big project in the garage, I would just be in the corner looking through photos. And so this one change of pausing before diving in, drawing my dreams, and then I did a couple other strategies I teach within my planner and membership. It was about 3 to 5 minutes of difference. And then I started. For the first time in my life, I could tell the difference between an action that aligned with my goal and a distraction. Prior to this moment, I would see 20 options in front of me and they all looked equally the same, and I didn't really know which things to do. And at the end of that day, I had strong shelves, organizing bins, clothes inside them. And the coolest thing about it is that nothing changed. My circumstances didn't change. My brain didn't change. And I didn't take any supplements or chemicals. Like, I didn't do anything different except drawing my dreams. And that's why today, 11 years later, I say, if you get nothing else from me, draw your dreams. You may come to this podcast thinking what maybe you've been told, which is you're lazy, you're unmotivated, you feel like you have too many decisions to make. There's so many distractions. You have a hard time starting things. You have a hard time finishing things. So for me on this day, I achieved something that I had never been able to achieve before. And I just said, what just happened? I'd love to introduce you to something I created specifically for brains like yours. Think Time membership is a guided neuroplanning membership designed to help you align with your design, work with your brain, and build your dreams with more clarity, confidence, creativity, and presence. Instead of forcing yourself into systems that don't fit you, you'll learn how to plan in the native, creative language of your brain using my neuroplanning framework. Love your design, then dream, decide, do, review. Inside the membership, you'll join a community of growth-oriented leaders for weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual guided planning experiences, so you'll never have to figure it out all alone. Your membership also includes access to the Think Time Neuroplanner, a whole brain visual planning system designed to help you harness the strengths of your mind instead of constantly fighting against it. And when you join, you'll receive access to the neuroplanning course and tutorials, planning tools and templates, live group coaching, monthly Q&A, and a live onboarding session so you can begin to use the system right away. If you're ready to increase your opportunity to experience more clarity, calm, confidence, creativity, meaningful productivity, and presence while getting more of the right things done in less time with peace, not pressure, visit think-time.com/podcast. I'd love to help you build a life that works with your brain, aligns with your design, and reflects what matters most. And so then the next minute, what am I doing? I'm running around saying, well, what else will this work on? Will it work on a closet? And so I paused and I drew an ideal closet, and then I just organized it, and it just became organized. And I was like, oh my gosh, could this work on my freezer? I ran to my freezer and I drew, if I had my ideal freezer, what would it look like? And so I drew my ideal freezer, and then very shortly afterwards, it became the ideal freezer. So the next thing was relationships. I drew the ideal relationships, and I knew exactly the actions I needed to take in my circle to achieve the type of relationships that I wanted. So drawing this dream, even if something seemed impossible, like organizing a freezer or a closet or a garage or having the type of relationship that I wanted, those all of a sudden became accessible to me. So I sat there for a minute and I used this, and I very quickly thought, well, what about those 5 years of reading productivity books that I've not been able to apply? So I everything that I knew from productivity that I'd studied, but I couldn't do, and I didn't know why. And I filtered it through the visual part of the brain, drawing and creative. I filtered it through the visual, creative parts of the brain. So I learned to draw my desired outcome, to get creative, and then use traditional productivity strategies, but used in a visual way to filter what's coming in. So what happened, I think, when I drew my dreams that day is it seemed like my brain was on my team. And so now I would like to say that I believe a clear dream gets your brain on your team. I could finally see the difference between all the inputs, what mattered and what didn't, because I was speaking the native language of my brain, this visual brain. We all know ADHDers are visual, but we've used it to color code and to make boxes and stack blocks and do things like this. But have we even thought about drawing a picture? If you've used a visualization or vision board, that science is, I believe, close to what we're talking about. So you hear a lot of great results. And so I think that when my garage matched my drawing with the shelves and the bins and the labels and the column, it's very similar to when somebody looks back and they're like, I achieved everything on my vision board, because you're putting into your brain the clear dream that gets your brain on your team. Tony Buzan created mind mapping, and he says that the first two languages of the brain are images and sensory associations. And so that's where, when you pause to say, what would I want? If it was wild success, what do I really want? And you draw it, that's a clear dream. And feeding your brain that type of information, like if you had a team of people and you had a member of the team that spoke Spanish, but all you did was speak English to them, it's not going to be easy for them to follow, and they don't know English. It's not going to be easy for them to follow the instructions. And so your brain, when you speak the first language of your brain, images and sensory associations, it's just easier for your brain to say, oh yeah, I'm on board. I'll work on that. And so that's basically, as we get into the podcast and we have these conversations, you'll find very quickly I read all the research and the details and everything, but when I speak, I just present things in broad brushstrokes and I package things in nutshells. So in general, what I believe happened is that by speaking the very, very basic language of the brain, we're allowing it to get on our team and to help us see what's part of the vision, what's part of the goal, and then let the other things slide off. So the distractions just don't penetrate as much anymore. And again, this was without changing my personality. I didn't have more time. I didn't have medication. I didn't have somebody help me with the kids. I didn't have a new planner. It was just activating the visual, imaginative part of my brain and simply drawing my dreams. So in all of these things, I just simply, when I ran around my house, I just drew what I wanted and then I did it. I drew, then I did, drew, then do. I never thought about that, but I would draw it first and then do it second. So before Think Time, I had read like all these productivity books. I knew the advice. I just couldn't do it and I didn't know why. And, you know, it's like you make a to-do list, and then you lose the to-do list and then you make another to-do list And then you lose a to-do list and everything's written on the back of envelopes and stuffed in drawers and it's just floating around. That was my life. I remember cleaning for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and it wouldn't ever get better. And I was like, something's not working, something's wrong. And the productivity books, I knew that they worked, but they weren't working for me. So on the inside of me, I wanted to be dependable to people. I didn't want to be flaky or someone they couldn't lean on or someone that wouldn't follow through on something. And I knew that people around me didn't trust me, but most of all, I didn't trust me. And I remember taking some productivity quizzes during that time. And I had a lot of confidence that if I had a big block of time, I could achieve something. But if I needed to follow a long-term process to achieve an outcome over time, I put my confidence level on a quiz at 0. I knew I could not achieve a multi-step goal. And it wasn't because I was self-deprecating. It wasn't because I was like down on myself. It was that I was an honest person. I knew what I was capable of, and I couldn't do that. And so I didn't try. And so anything that required follow through or multiple steps, I just said, no, I'm not the person to do that. And when you think about life, like that's a lot of life, right? To say no to or to feel less than confident that I can achieve. And it's not because, again, it's not because of this lack of self-esteem. In many ways, I had a good self-esteem, but I just knew I couldn't do it. And so I saw everybody else being able to do it, but I knew I couldn't. And I was reading books like crazy. So the problem for me, it wasn't that I wasn't smart enough. It wasn't that I wasn't motivated enough. It wasn't that I had bad character. And I think that's a really important one because people mischaracterize brain function as character flaw. And it's very easy to do. Lazy, selfish, self-centered, egotistical. All you do is think of yourself. All those messages, it's not a character problem. It's a brain function and it functioning differently. And so for me, I was putting the work in. I probably read more productivity books than any of my friends, but I still didn't know what I was going to do 2 Tuesdays from now at 6:30, like my other friends could. And they'd say, "Oh, I'm available 2 Tuesdays from now at 6:30 to get together." And I was like, "How do you know what you're going to be doing then?" I didn't have that ability. So traditional systems, when I think about traditional systems, I think about lines and words. Okay. They're logical. They have tasks. They have lists. And there's so much we're going to get to in these podcasts that I can't wait to dive into all the topics. That this may go long on this first one because I'm just tangential on all the points. And in some ways, I would argue every brain needs to use your whole brain. We'll just give a teaser for later episodes. But specifically, creative brains, you need to know where you're going. If you're saying, I feel distracted, but you haven't paused to say, where am I going? How do you know if you're off track, right? Identify where you're going. Do you have the vision? Are you emotionally engaged? And then when you're creative, thinking outside the box can help you get all the ideas on the table so that you're making the best decisions. But the creative brain needs all of these pieces, and especially meaning, making meaning before action. So vision, emotion, imagination, and meaning come before action. So why does drawing work? Again, your brain loves images. We think visually, and images create that clarity. When you have that clarity, your brain's not just wondering, it doesn't have to go through all the options. It knows where it's going and can very quickly sort this belongs, this doesn't belong. And then it also taps into, it's really cool. There's research on visualization that shows that focus and energy and motivation increase with visualization. And I think motivation is one of those really key things that we want to tap into. Often we're like, I don't have motivation for that. And so you wonder, like, do I need to wait for motivation or push through and discipline? And we'll talk more about the answers on this one. But in general, for this podcast right now, I want you to know drawing your dreams can increase your motivation. So that gives you more agency over building your motivation. You can think of it like drawing your dreams, giving your brain a GPS destination. Instead of like living an entire life saying, I need to follow through. I need to make myself it's big picture here. Let's just think about this for a minute. let's just say that you go with the work harder and force focus method. Every time you come to a bridge and you're like, I don't feel motivated, and you just need to force the focus. There's certainly a place for that at some time. But if that is the only strategy you have, and you end up with an entire life of forced focus and pushing through and grit and discipline, when you have ADHD and you have your ultimate power is engaged when you are doing what you want versus this life of like, oh, I'm gritting and bearing it. Just think like big picture. I stoking the motivation, getting underneath the tasks and saying, why does this matter to me? And drawing it. So just big picture, that's where we're going in this podcast. We're going to go toward, I have more agency, motivation, and I can change my level of motivation. So when you have ADHD, we're going to lean in to your strengths and let them be superpowers. We're not going to say, I'm distracted, I'm unmotivated. We're going to work with who you are, and we're going to lean into, in this podcast, I'll show you how. At Think Time, we lean into your creative visualizing strengths. We use mindfulness to help you get in touch with what you want. But right now and today, I really want you to zero in to the importance of drawing. And this is something that a lot of people have a lot of resistance to, and it's almost funny at this point, 10 years later, just to say, just draw it, just try, because we just want to use words. There are a lot of reasons for this, but the parts of the brain that use words aren't connected to the decision-making parts of your brain. The drawing is closer. And so when you draw your dream, you can get more in touch with what you actually want, those things that you throughout life have built as like, this matters, this doesn't matter, I move toward this, I move away from this. All of those are stored very deeply in your brain. Drawing is closer to that. Words are like really far away. And so if you're using words, you might get things done, but you'll be less confident that they're the right sort of things. I just think that one of the worst things that can happen is going effectively in the wrong direction. And I speak about that a lot. But drawing can help you narrow your focus, give direction, create a clear path of hope, and even reduce the mental load and overwhelm, because it's just speaking clearly to the parts of your brain that see exactly where you're going. So when you want to draw your dreams, this is how you do it. You just say whatever you're thinking about. It can be relationships, it can be organization, it can be a goal, it can be anything big or small. The first thing I want you to do is say, if there were no obstacles, what is it that I really want? So just let yourself get expansive and really think in terms of, well, what if there were no obstacles? What is it that I really want? And you're engaging your imagination. It doesn't have to be realistic at this point, and it's better if it's not. When you let go of reality for just enough time to get in touch with what matters most to you, then you can access some deeper parts of your brain. And then secondly, you're going to draw it. So you get creative, really get in touch with what you want, and draw it. So stick figures are welcome, terrible art is welcome, scribbles are great, and sometimes even just a color works. One member just used the color purple and transformed her month. So just think visual, visual, visual. The quality of the drawing does not matter. You do not have to be a good artist. I can't tell you the resistance that happens at this one step. It's about the clarity of your vision. Okay. And so you have this, if you're drawing it in your think time, you can see it every time you look at your weekly plan. If you're drawing this on the back of an envelope, just put it up where you can see it, where you are regularly. It can be your refrigerator, at your desk, in your car, but put it somewhere where you'll see it regularly. But the act of drawing this puts it into your brain with your fingers. And we have so many neurons, so many neural connections in our hands. It's really, really critical. One Think Time member said, when I draw my dreams, it feels like I'm claiming a little piece of ground. And so, you know how life can just feel chaotic sometimes all around you, but you draw your dream and that's where you stake your claim. Like, this is my dream. This is what I want to achieve. This is where ownership, intention, living on purpose really sits in a really practical way. So thank you for joining me today to learn about drawing your dreams. It reminds me of the time when the researcher discovered that washing your hands would cure diseases and keep people from getting sick in hospitals. People hated him for saying, just wash your hands. And I feel like drawing your dreams for the pain that ADHD can cause in a daily life, I feel like it feels trite, if I'm honest. And so I just appreciate you being open-minded enough to listen and then hopefully to try it on a dream today. On my Instagram, I like copy pasted and posted this little clip of everybody from Saved by the Bell. You know, when we were growing up in the 90s, there was this show called Saved by the Bell, and all the characters were like dumb, crazy, stupid, dangerous. And I posted that. I was like, that's what people say when I say drawing your dreams could help with ADHD, because, you know, there are many people who are like, this is a serious disease. And there are many very serious things to consider when we talk about ADHD. And I in no way am minimizing the grief, the heartache, sometimes even the danger that ADHD can be related to. And so I want to be very clear about that. But I also want to just say, like, drawing your dreams, engaging the different parts of your brain has helped so many people over this last decade that I feel very confident to suggest that it could potentially increase your opportunity to achieve your goals in a distracting world. And so I think it's worth a try. So today we talked about an overwhelmed mom with 3 kids, 4 and under. That's me, in a garage with an idea and a dream. And I used a different strategy and it just changed my life. And immediately I started sharing it with others, and I started taking everything I knew and filtering it through this new science. And of course, in classic ADHD fashion, within the year I had launched Think Time Planner because the world needed to know about this. It was so amazing for me. So I just took everything I knew about productivity, leadership, purpose, and all the things. I think I did like 4 leadership programs by the time I was 24. And I just poured everything into that. And I was about 35 at the time and developed this process. And honestly, it's something that has helped me achieve so much. I've had 3 more kids since then. I now have 6 kids, and it has just helped me so much personally. And then I've seen people around the world tell me that their satisfaction with their personal productivity has doubled. I had 2 people at 2 separate times tell me that their personal productivity satisfaction doubled within 2 weeks of starting to use my planner. So thank you for joining me on this first podcast of hyper focus and high performance. And we're going to be talking about the framework that I developed when I took this science and filtered everything I knew about life and productivity through it. And it's called neuroplanning. So I will see you there. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and isn't a substitute for individualized medical, mental health, or professional care. Every brain is different. Results will vary. Thank you for listening to Hyperfocus and High Performance. If today's conversation helped you think differently about how your mind works, I invite you to take the next step. Visit think-time.com/podcast and grab my free training. Why can't I find a planner that works for me? If you've ever felt frustrated, judged, even by yourself, overwhelmed, or simply wondered why everyone seems to be able to follow a system that simply doesn't work for you, you're not alone. In this free training, you'll discover how your brain naturally approaches focus, planning, and productivity, and why many traditional systems were never designed for minds like yours, and whether neuroplanning could help you increase your opportunity to experience more clarity, calm, confidence, creativity, and meaningful progress with peace, not pressure. And if this episode encouraged you, please subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave a review so more brilliant, creative ADHD visionaries can discover what's possible. Remember, you don't have to become someone else to do what only you can do, because only you can be who only you can be, and otherwise there will be a hole in history. The path forward is clear. Love your design, then dream, decide, do, review. I'll see you next time.